Hey, guy.
What's up, man?
We're actually doing this in person. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, back in the flesh.
I like it. I was going to say, I like, and then what you said at the end of your sentence just now.
In the flesh.
Like, I was going to say, I like, and I'm not going to say it because that just sounds really weird.
Oh, okay.
Not in the flesh. I like.
I've lost you.
I almost said I like the flesh in response.
Oh, no.
Now you made me say it. I had to explain myself. Well, we're here. It's good. I like this.
Yeah. Welcome to the new apartment. I'll leave the name that is commonly referred to out of the podcast. But,
I see. It is referred to as a hole filled with odorous excrement, but the most common form of that over grandiose word I just used in the United States. Like, most of the time people are like, oh, it's like a blank hole.
Mm-hmm. It's blank hole.
It's pretty nice.
It's not as bad as the name makes it out to be.
For being called it, we're talking like some next level expectations, you know. You have expectations of something, and if it's not, you know, it's just better than the expectations, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the quick tangent, like the TV in our living room is really like way too small for that room. So whenever someone comes over, I always say, it's not too big, is it? And they're like, it's definitely not too big. I'm like, okay, good. That's what I was
That's what you did
about.
to me last week, but I didn't know if that was, I think you did that by the end of the 4th of July. So I didn't, you know, if anyone on the podcast gets what I'm saying, like, it wasn't during the day or early in the day. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering whether there was a reason that he was making that joke. But if you just do it all the time, yeah, good for you, I guess.
I'm always in meddling mode.
You really are. People who don't know Chantz, he really does meddle. He finds meaning in meddling.
I do. I really do identify with that on a deep basis.
Say metaphysical all the time.
Metaphysical.
Because like in high school, this is my go-to. If someone would say something, and I had an impassionate response, I'd be like, I disagree with that on a metaphysical level. And they'd be like, why does it have to be metaphysical every time? I'm like, because I'm a philosopher. I'm like, this is my line of thinking throughout my life has always been, let's use a few token, like, grandiose words to, you know, gatekeep people, right? So when I was young, I used to make a big deal about, I'm minorly mocking myself, by the way. I used to talk about how I could, what was the word? It was like, give me a moment.
I do like that you're learning the philosopher's way of just gatekeeping with your big words.
Yeah, I used the word sophisticated. Like, I made a point of saying, I know how to spell sophisticated or something to that effect. It was ridiculous in retrospect. I remember being in like kindergarten though, and I could spell sophisticated and say the word out loud without stuttering though, and people did think that was pretty cool.
That's a big hype word in kindergarten.
They're like, oh my God. No, nobody actually thought that. They probably thought I was being I don't know what the word is that's kind enough for this podcast, but
they were like, he's so highfalutin.
I remember when I used that word to ask whether I was highfalutin. That was weird. I don't know if I asked you. I asked somebody else, I think. Yeah, I asked someone. I was like, do I talk highfalutin? And they went, what does that mean? And I went, oh, yeah, I think I answered my question. And then actually by the end of it, we came to an agreement that I don't normally. But there's just times when sometimes I don't know whether it's on purpose or my vocabulary is okay.
Yeah, that is a little bit of circular reasoning. But how you been, man?
I've been good. I just realized it's the second time we've talked about that on this podcast. Might be something subconscious going in there. But we're doing good. Job was good. I realized I've been at work for a month.
That's crazy. It did not feel like a month.
It's been a month since we went to the wedding.
No.
I know.
Trust
me, I've been paying attention to how long that's been because like work started, other things have been going on. So it's like a month.
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
It doesn't feel right that I've been at this job, that I'm like adulting for a month.
Yeah.
It's weird, man.
Yeah, summer really moves fast, and I'm sure the real world is the same way.
Yeah, I find myself in this cycle of working, completing tasks, and then, I don't know, I don't want to say anything, but maybe a task management system will be implemented at my company via a suggestion I've made. But I may be getting ahead of myself. But I think the culture wants it. So I don't know if my suggestion will be put into place. I don't really mind regardless. I just want something because I like that stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to help, but I'm new.
What was the name of that position you want to create? The efficiency
I want to be
manager?
like, in my life, it'd be great if one day I could be a systems improvement. No, it was continuous improvement manager.
Yeah, there was the one article you sent me. I think it
Yeah.
was more like system improvement.
Yeah,
manager.
process improvement maybe.
Yeah.
But there was another article I looked up that talked more about it, a position that's actually relatively normalized at companies that was called continuous improvement manager. And they end up becoming like an internal consultant for the company where they're just like, okay, guys, they go into like the mini teams. It's like, let's see what these processes are like. And then you'd go, oh, not too good. You need some help with that. And I feel like I'm not saying I know like the ultimate level of efficiency for everything, but I feel like if I ended up getting put in that position, I would teach myself and go into finding programs that help me learn even more. Like this is what I do for fun. So I feel like I'm more well-versed than the average Joe.
Right. And you have a clear knack for learning more about it.
Yes. So like if that could be the job of just me walking into a room being like, all right, what do you guys do on like a weekly basis? And then they'd be like, this, someone messages me and I do it. It's like, no. Task batch, time block, boom. Just like something like that'd be fun.
That would be pretty sweet.
Be a great job. But yeah, life's been good. How about you, man?
It's been good. Yeah, nothing. Like you said, time's moving fast. The LSAT is creeping up on me here. We're like 5 weeks out.
And how many hours we at?
I think we're at 112.
Good Lord, 112.
Yeah. So it's not bad.
And you're supposed to be at?
I think I'm 20 hours behind last time I checked. But that sounds really bad. But I have like 10 days where there's this blocked out and expected to have zero study. 20 hours, I can get that done in 3 days.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. Because you're on a trip next.
Yep, going to.
I guess it's good. We're probably going to record too. Now I think about it.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'm going to Arizona in about a month. No, not even a month. I'm leaving in like 10 days.
I feel like that was a big difference from what you thought in your mind. Like you had this like whole like Arizona. This is the embodiment of, or a very good example of how we are having our lives move fast.
Yeah, exactly. The summer's a void, man. You're getting lost in the black hole here.
When I was a kid, my mom used to tell me this, and it triggered me at the time. But it was because it was accurate. After the 4th of July, summer's over. And I would be like, we have till August 16th. Why are you saying this? Or in some circumstances, it'd be nearly Labor Day. And then she'd go, you'll see. Basically every year, just like with how the year went and everything.
Yeah.
It's always a quick summer.
Yeah, it's true. Especially after the 4th of July. That's very accurate.
Because this is, I don't know if you feel this, post-Kentucky move specifically, but any time that you've been in either Chicago or Ohio, Cleveland area, you are yearning for the warmth to come for like 8 months of the year. And then the summer comes and you're happy that it's warm and stuff. And then before you know it, you're yearning for the warmth to come again.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And the 4th of July is just when it crescendos, right? You get hot as it can get. And now we're miserable and don't want it here anymore.
How are your feet?
Oh, my feet were burnt after the 4th. They were red. They didn't peel that badly, though. It did hurt on a few runs.
This guy, it was bad, man.
Yeah, it was really bad.
I was concerned. Like, I remember looking at those after you ran that morning and going, this dude's screwed.
Yeah, they were hot.
I was not happy for you.
Yeah, but honestly, it looked worse than it felt.
Really?
Yeah, so it wasn't too bad.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Good to hear. I think we want these things for people. You know what else we want for people? Since we're, how many minutes? I can't tell.
10?
10? Okay. My site's getting worse. But anyways, what we want for people is for them to be allowed to make money off of themselves if they would like that to be the case.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And now we're able to talk about me running for Loyola. Thank you to the NCAA.
It's dope, man. I can't complain about that. I'm happy for you.
Yeah. Exciting. I mean, I don't know. I think technically I should be running this by the school first, but...
No, you always were allowed to say something. It's a matter of if any income comes in.
Yeah, I guess
but like
true.
Now the red tape and the structure of you then getting the money. So that's why there's no fear. Like my fear the whole time was always, maybe they'll let me do it if I don't bring it up. Like they'll let me make money. And I had to decline a lot of like random offers of things. Like for example, I make videos for Wondershare PDF Element now, and that would have been a no-go during college, but they're helping me. It's helping me like get a side income, right? And it's annoying that I had to say no.
Yeah, that is annoying. And just to put some context in here, we are talking about name, image, and likeness, the new legislation that came down from Supreme Court ruling. I think it started out in California, was the first state's legislature. Mm-hmm. Kind of the flick of the first domino there, and then they all fell. I think there's 30-some states that have state ruling or state legislation, as well as Supreme Court, and the NCAA, I think, should be coming down with uniform legislation to make it fair for all states. But essentially, student athletes are able to make money off their name, image, and likeness. And we're going to get into the little details about that today, as it has affected Dimitri's life and currently still affects mine.
Yeah, it's crazy that this was something that was, pretty bothersome to me for a while. A lot of the guys on the team heard me complain about this. I would say using the B word would be accurate of describing how I would talk about this subject. I would complain about it. And I'm just glad that it's okay for you and others now.
Yeah.
When I was talking to family members about this, when this ruling came down, they asked me, does this bother you? And my immediate thought was, I'm a stoic now. No, but I thought to myself, I'm happy that I have a friend that, it's going to help more than anything. But yes, maybe me a couple months ago would have been triggered by this thought.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And I think that it is pretty split from the interviews and mostly just like watching ESPN, seeing how people feel about it, older collegiate athletes. It seems that there's a big group that was like, oh, I wish I had like reparations for the time that I was a college athlete and could have made millions. You got the whole, have you heard about the Reggie Bush situation?
Oh, he got the car and everything, and then like he lost his Heisman. So is he
So pissed? He's like pushing to get his Heisman back now because...
Fair enough, actually.
Because of the name, image, and likeness. He's like, well, what I did is no longer illegal. It was illegal at the time, so it's...
Fair enough. I mean, there's a lot to be said about the law, though, and how that's... Well, I guess college athletics law is not the same as like criminal law, It's not like where we'd be freeing a lot of criminals, for example, with the whole weed legalization. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't have a problem with them being freed, right? But I could see where the argument could be made from a government standpoint of like, no, we can't let them out of jail. They were criminals at the time. Now, I don't agree with it. However, I can, like, it's more feasible of an argument. Now, since it's just college athletics and it's just an organizational rule, kind of stupid, like, for them not to give him the Heisman, considering he did deserve it on the field of play.
Well, exactly. It's like, he won it. He deserved it. Like,
he was really good.
Exactly. It's like, if he doesn't have it, this just means that no one has it. It's like, we're just playing ourselves to say that Reggie Bush isn't a Heisman winner. Everyone knows he is. He just doesn't own it. Yeah,
that was a subject for a while. My dad was a big USC fan growing up, as a man growing up in suburban Chicago. Didn't really have any college team to root for, so you just kind of pick, as one does. Insert joke here from my friends about how I'm an Ohio State fan. But anyways, since the whole Pete Carroll situation and Reggie Bush situation, when they lost all their scholarships following that, he really does not like Pete Carroll. He's like, no more with the whole USC thing. And we're like Ohio State fans now, right? That's where I got that from. That is interesting to think about how what Pete Carroll did by giving his athlete that sort of those advantages, quote unquote, financially, is now something that could be on the table. And my whole dad's thought process on how he doesn't like the Pete Carroll or the team anymore. It's interesting how this ruling can change. I mean, there's a domino effect even in my own life where there's an alternate universe where I'm a USC fan if this rule is fixed earlier. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's weird how, in my opinion, this has been a big issue, like that, especially football and basketball, like where you're not getting paid anything and these head coaches are getting paid millions.
So much money.
It's just like someone made an analogy to slavery, essentially, where it's like you're benefiting off the backs of others. And you can pull the racing into there too. It's a stretch, but sure. Regardless, fundamentally, I think that was a pretty bad policy. And it's just nice to see how it is now, but it is kind of weird with this Reggie Bush situation and such.
Yes. So I would obviously say, I don't know if I agree with the slavery argument because of the whole free education for some. obviously.
Yeah, and like, there's all kinds of benefits, but they were like, oh, like there's some people that could be making millions, and it's like, okay,
I don't disagree with that. That is fair.
Yeah, it is annoying when Porter Moser won't take a cut out of his millions, and then it's like anyone on that Final Four team didn't make money.
Respect to what he did for Loyola, but Porter Moser, you leaving, not a very popular thing amongst Loyolans. Sister Jean was probably upset. You upsetting Sister Jean upsets us all. But regardless, examples of him. So when we went to that wedding, I actually had a discussion with someone about, they met Urban Meyer and asked me what I thought about Urban Meyer since they went to Ohio State. I'm an Ohio State fan.
Yeah.
And now he works for the Jaguars and makes a bunch of money. Do you remember how he made that whole excuse about, I have very severe, I don't know if this is an excuse. I don't want to make any assumptions about people's health, but he had basically pain. Like he had a lot of stress, and that stress led to I don't know if he's ever said aneurysms, but he had migraines, I think.
Yeah, it was something very vague, regardless of what it was.
And that was post the whole scandal that had happened with one of his subordinate coaches.
Yeah. That
was nearly Sandusky level of bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hear, now he's making all this money, all those kids in college and then like this, my whole mind races about other things. So people like to make this funny argument to me where they say, but these college athletes, they then become professionals and they make the money. As an Ohio State fan, something that gets thrown in my face all the time when Justin Fields got drafted was what? No Ohio State quarterback ever makes it in the NFL. This is where the argument lies. These college athletes are not guaranteed professional success. Some people just don't translate to professional athletics. So when we go into this with the argument of, okay, but they're getting the free education, okay, but we're talking opportunity cost here, right? So the NCAA is making billions of dollars annually on this when men like Justin Fields and women in their respective sports can make money as well, obviously. There are situations where Justin Fields, if you go cookie cutter by every Ohio State quarterback standard, JT Barrett, Cardale Jones, all these guys would have made at least a few $100,000 while they were in college based on how they were playing.
Right.
But they made maybe the equivalent of that, maybe a little bit more than that in their professional careers in their entirety. And working under the assumption and acting as if $500K or $1 million is jack is hilarious based on the arguments I hear from people when they themselves would obviously like that amount of money to be in their bank account.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's just, regardless, it's 4 years of missing out on a huge amount of money. And it's like, sure, it's a drop in the ocean when you're a professional athlete, but
not for all. A lot of them just don't make it.
Exactly. And I think another thing that I thought was a big plus about this is that you have so many one and dones because you want to go into professional sports and start getting paid right away.
Very true.
This is going to lead to, a decrease in, wealth management and just like, I don't know, general education of professional athletes. I'm not saying that all of them mismanage their money, but if you have to stay for 4 years and I don't know, it's advantageous to stay for 4 years and get your degree before going to professional sports, we're going to have a more educated population of professional athletes, I think
those are a really good point because you look at the demographics, as we mentioned earlier, something interesting that Michigan did, that Michigan did, good for them, was they had a financial education course that was required to be taken, I think, at least for 1 year by every college athlete. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Because professional athletes at large in football and basketball will, go broke 40-something% of the time. And that's a bad number. However, when you look at where these people come from, these amazing athletes are gifted. They do well, but maybe they come from very, impoverished areas. Maybe they come from the inner city. Maybe they just, and in that circumstance, most of the time, a lot of people are just going to want things from them and then they end up going broke. It's I don't want to make it that blunt, but they grow up in the hood and then they have people around them who are not worried about their best interests sometimes. They have agents even who aren't. They have family members or friends who are their agents, and it doesn't go well. But in this circumstance, if we get them to also have taken college courses, they get a little more educated, they get a little more exposure to things like what Michigan's doing, and then the rates like maybe 10% of them go broke. And I'm down with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best economic incentive you can make is, it's like, honestly, I think there's some cases where you're going to make I don't know, pretty solid chunk from being in college comparable to professional sports. I think that's the very top echelon, but it's something,
It's extremely, it is something. And you know what's crazy? Here's an example. We had Cam Krutwig at our school. Respectfully, probably won't make it in the NBA.
Yeah.
But he was ranked one of the top centers in college basketball.
And everyone knew about him.
Everybody knew about him because of the Final Four runs, the Sweet 16, where we almost made the Elite Eight. We're talking about a guy who had very significant capabilities to make some actual money while he was in college, but he just doesn't have an opportunity at a professional level. Same with Clayton Custer, literally our Final Four team.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that part of it is with collegiate athletes getting paid now, it seems to be a combination of skill and also just being able to sell yourself. I think part of the reason Cameron Krutwig is so popular is, I mean, everyone comes up to me like, oh, you guys got that, like that big like white center who like, runs on his toes down the court. And it's like, he's just like a character, whether he like tries to be or not. It's just like he has a brand. And I think that is just almost equally as important as your skill set if you're trying to get paid at the collegiate level now.
Very good point. Also, he's the father of Kofi Coburn.
Dude, that Wikipedia page is funny.
When we were watching the Final Four, when they made Sweet 16 at the time. Did we make the Elite Eight again? No, it was the round of 32 when it happened. 32. We beat the U of I Fighting Illini, and Cameron Krutwig's Wikipedia for a few minutes was changed to father of Kofi Coburn, which was the center of U of I. And
top 5 player in the league
and
of the year.
Amazing player from Jamaica who had been killing people this whole season, and U of I had been an amazing team. So they just changed the Wikipedia page to father of Kofi Coburn. And if you don't think, another name, image, likeness, obviously going back to that, if you don't think he wouldn't have made money off that situation, I don't know if you're working with a full deck, because you got to think in that scenario, he's going to make something off of that. Even he puts a t-shirt to get something. I mean, not making fun of Kofi Coburn maybe on the t-shirt, but I'm just saying, like, him being Captain Krutwig in that scenario, he got a lot of traction for how he played. He was popular. He got an ESPN. He got in front of a very large audience.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's something that he doesn't get to capitalize on as much in a situation. I don't want to go on too long because I want to hear your response, but there's this interesting thing where we understand how sensationalized the world is. We understand this. I think a lot of people understand that time flies even in a larger sense than it used to. So popularity has smaller time frames as well.
Yes.
Nobody really thinks about him now, but they were thinking about him for like 5-7 days. He would have made something in that time frame, but now he had to wait till he was done with college in order to make the money.
And
tough.
Who couldn't say that they'd be thinking about him longer if there were t-shirts or what have you?
More branding opportunities. Him having the monetary side of it. I definitely people aren't thinking, like, they go and they make these arguments, and I think to myself, you're not always adding the context that's needed in today's type of, not economy, but mindset of people. We just go from thing to thing so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. With the age of the internet, I mean, it can just, you can mobilize so quickly on some kind of trend like that. That's a good point. And I actually want to get to how you're feeling about the YouTube realm and how this will change for people like, I don't know if anyone knows Adam Fogg, but that is
good for him, man.
He's a Valley runner. He has a YouTube channel. He obviously can start monetizing it now. He has been very outward about being a Division I athlete. It just centers on him running.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious, first, how you think people like Adam Fogg are going to change this YouTube sphere where they now can monetize? And also, how do you feel, looking back and saying that you never monetize yourself with being a runner?
So I think that's a good question because it gives some perspective maybe to the naysayers of the ruling of Dimitri in that scenario had to be an amateur in its purest form and compete as an amateur. I'd say good for him. I'd also say sometimes it's hilarious when the expectations that were put upon us and then we put on ourselves were the levels of a professional, but then they expect us to be compensated as an amateur. And when other things we did outside of it were taken into account and said, no, you're not allowed to make money out of that, on that. You're not allowed to do that. I don't think it's a good argument because I had to make an entire lifestyle change for something. We've discussed this randomly amongst each other since I stopped, but I allow myself to have an alcoholic beverage more than twice a year now that I stopped.
Yeah.
Where in the heck is that not the same level of dedication as a professional athlete?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, there's more rules in place. I mean, the whole betting thing on any sport, I mean, honestly, that's a stressor for any collegiate athlete. Just thinks about anytime you get into like even a silly betting situation where it's like, oh, let's bet $1 on this game. It's like, no way you can do that. You never know what's going to come back to you, or fantasy football, what have you.
Yeah.
It's a more realistic example.
Or if we had guys talking about it jokingly, like some of the older guys, and sometimes I've told you, I'm like, yeah, you should tell somebody, like, stop that. Like, don't say it verbally because you never know. Things come back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it's everywhere, man. You do a road 5K in the summer and you win a t-shirt, or you win like $25 and you got to report it. Like, nowhere in professional sports do I imagine they have to go through that kind of red tape just to, for something so absurd as that.
To keep the integrity of the amateurism of what it is a hilarious statement, because as we come from the sport of running, I think this gives us good context too. Are you familiar with how the track and field organization, I think it was the, not AT something, American Track and Field Federation, ATF, maybe before it was the USATF.
Oh, yeah.
Familiar with how the whole pre-thing happened, and he essentially was living on food stamps before the 72 Olympics, before United States athletes were allowed to not be amateurs, they were allowed to be professionals.
Oh, no, I did not know that.
So essentially in track and field, until I think the 90s, when a lot of the pushes were made to allow athletes to have the rights that they do, the Track and Field Federation basically told every athlete, you are an amateur. You're not allowed to compete as a professional. You're not allowed to get award money from races. You are not allowed to do this, that, and the other. You have to train as hard as everyone else. But if you don't stay an amateur, you're not allowed to keep any of your world records. You're not allowed to compete as an Olympian. And Pre was offered a lot of money. At the time, he was a national sensation.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And he said no, so he could stay amateur. Same thing happened in college athletics, and it has happened for a while. And people will be like, oh, well, he gets the glory of being a gold medalist, yada, yada. Whatever, man. Why are we doing this thing where we make a lot of good points about a lot of good societal things, and we're moving forward in a lot of directions, but then there's like this minor hold back in some areas that just don't make as much sense. Like, morally, what is the negative of getting rid of amateurism in sports?
See, and that's what, when you bring up track like that, I think that, puts out the fire that a lot of people are trying to create, where they're saying that the NCAA is just going to, go into shambles. When you had, this isn't the first time we've seen amateurism go into professionalism. And I don't think that this is the end of the NCAA. I think some people are being really just off the rocker about that whole situation. And yeah, I mean, of course we don't want to lose the ends for the means. We're all doing this because we love the sport and we want championships and gold medals. But there are clearly people who are winning monetarily in this, battle, and it's not the athlete, the person who is actually, putting in the labor, putting in, I don't know. It's funny to me that the only thing that we get out of all these, rules getting changed now is that now we're actually allowed to do the number of hours that we're allowed to train. Because, I mean, with any sport, I mean, you talk to any coach, everyone's going over the limit of hours they're supposed to do. There's like this whole amateurism thing where it's like you practice like 5 days a week, 4 days. I don't even know what it is, but everyone doesn't know it because no one follows it. And it's like we were going to violate this rule, but then we can't bet $1 on a fantasy football game.
That is so true. I agree with you there completely. And I'm not going to say anything because, don't want to say anything about my former team, whatever. But I will say, as a person who time blocks and went through the time frame of tracking their time, highly improbable most teams are keeping up with the rule.
Yeah, no, this isn't a rip on Loyola.
No,
this is,
in general.
Just the landscape.
And the training expectations to be a good any athlete in any sport and be successful and live up to your scholarship, it's impossible, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Keeping under the number. It's impossible if you want to be the best of the best. And then you end up just doing a lot of things off book. We run without our coach, or I guess not anymore for me because I'm done, but we run out of coach, and that's part of the rules. It's like, okay, yes, are we not required to meet with him at 7 for practice? Sure. Are we still running 13 before we go lift? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, where's the line we're drawing here?
Exactly.
Because if you don't do that run, I'm not saying you suck, but I'm saying marginal training throughout months upon months, as any athlete knows, makes you that next level of good. So it's ridiculous that expectation was set. There was no monetary sort of benefit outside of the decrease in cost for university, which I both appreciate and don't appreciate for 2 reasons. One, I appreciate it because it is expensive, but I don't appreciate it because it is expensive. And my logic there is, okay, you're giving us this benefit of expensive college to not be as much. That's hilarious because in the 80s or 90s, that wouldn't have been a big deal because guess what? It didn't cost jack.
It's like when you have like let's say like I found a rock, I put some googly eyes on it and I say it's $100, but I'll give it to you for 10. It's like, oh gee, thanks.
Like, I'm happy that it helped finance my education. Don't get me wrong. I think it's good that it does that to a certain extent, but it's also this weird argument of, all right, so do we want to get into the whole how there's no reason our school should cost 60 a year, 50 or 60 a year, 50 a year tuition and then 10 for living expenses? Just like, do we want to get into that, or are we just going to work with the whole, like, it pays for our school and that's good enough?
Yeah, no, that definitely does pull back another layer, just talking about college tuition and how that is just, inflated so much in the past few decades. But I think that another point that can definitely be made here about this amateur hour limit that continuously gets broken while every other rule arbitrarily gets followed is it's pretty much common knowledge that anyone who's trying to get to the next level as a collegiate athlete can't hold any kind of job. At least one that, I don't know, you work a double-digit number of hours. You could maybe do something. I mean, I held a tutoring position for 4 hours a week.
For the school.
But
that catered, but it was for the athletic department too, so it catered specifically to your time frame. If that didn't exist, tell me you would have been able to travel. I mean, you did it remote too.
Yeah, there's no way I could do retail, food service, any kind of
normal college job.
Regular college job, exactly. Like, there's no sustainable way for me to like work at a bar or like work at the bike shop over the school year. I had tried, I immediately was burnt out. And it's just like, if you're expecting us to go over the limit and put in like real hours as if this were a job, then at least let some people get paid like it's a job. I'm not asking to get paid. I'm not good enough to get paid, like purely for being vast or whatever. But you should give people that opportunity if they're putting in that amount of work.
Yeah, at least get paid for other things, At least get paid for what they're doing, and they choose to make it something fun with like YouTube or something to that style. I think that's all that's needed, because for college athletes like we are, and I was and you are, I think a lot of people miss the bigger picture with this rule. It affected, sure, the big college athletes who maybe were going to go professional and I made the counter argument against that with the whole, maybe they're going to be a bust. But for people like us, that few $100s a month, that few $1,000s a year, that's something that helps prevent our debt from being higher than it would have been. And that's the whole thing. Why do people like to do this argument against NIL legislation, but in the same breath, they then go, oh, the college debt situation's so bad. So amateurism to you, and that sort of arbitrary thing that was invented by the different sporting organizations that existed over time, that to you means more than actual financial issues for students. That's hilarious.
Oh, it's just keeping, the preservation of amateur.
But what does that even mean?
College athletes.
What does amateurism even mean?
It's an abstract term that people like.
It was made up
behind, right?
It's all exactly. Like, granted, most things are made up, but this financial debt is tangible. We're talking people who walk onto a school even and could make money via being a student athlete because like walk-ons at schools that are really good schools could make a YouTube channel and make a lot of ad revenue off of the fact that they're still really good at their sport. They're just school specifically doesn't like a walk-on at like Notre Dame running wise would beat like all of us or most of us.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, right? But they could make some money.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not even just skill. I mean, this is just anyone who can sell themselves well. If you're a great YouTuber and an okay runner who just films yourself really well running, you can make money now.
What's that guy's name? You've seen the Virginia Tech running club guy?
Oh, I forget his name, but I know what you're talking about.
Respectfully, he's not good in comparison to us, but he is better than the average Joe, and he's good at selling himself, and he makes really good videos.
Yeah, he makes really good content.
And he would admit, I'm not trying to be rude, but like he would admit that we're obviously better than him at running because his PR is substantially worse in the scheme of how running works. I got a little brash there, but I'm just trying to make a point.
Running's an objective sport.
Running is an objective sport. It is. Like if you run slower, you are worse. Unless you have the context of like you kicked really hard and you still ran kind of fast and maybe you had the opportunity to work, didn't run as fast. But that's a higher level of context. But anyways, his PR is substantially time-wise worse. But he is making money off YouTube and there was no red tape the whole time. He was able to sell himself, do a good job of it, have fun running. Oh my God, that's like almost what all of us should have been able to do the whole time.
Yeah, it's just crazy that there was such a love for this idea of amateurism. Like, as we said, abstract fake. And at the expense of not letting college athletes use their whole identity to sell themselves. When you put so much time towards being an athlete, it just becomes a large part of your identity. And it's like, I mean, clear case with your YouTube channel where you just had to omit parts of your life. Like watching it from the inside, being one of the only people who like watches and also knows what's behind the veil. It's like, it's so interesting when you just like cut out certain parts of your life, but it's like, it was a little awkward watching it when I know what's actually going on, but it's just like, it's unfortunate. Like we have to have this situation, you know?
Yeah. What was really weird was when I dropped a video, and I showed a vlog I showed a Strava like snippet of splits in a vlog once. And the comments were funny because they were like, dude, I know you're like, they go, well, did you just like randomly drop like mid 530s for multiple miles in a row on a random run? Like, are you really good or something? Like they were just shocked. I'm like, I can't say anything. I don't know what to do. And that's like the least of it. But that was, it affected me. I was thinking to myself, make this video. I want to talk about how I run in college. So I enjoy this part of my life. I like myself. I like this part of my life. It's been a big part of my life for, at that point, when I'd made the video 9 years, or I started running track when I was in 5th grade. So, but like distance running wise, say 8 years or something. And it's okay. I can't mention it. That's cool.
Yeah, it's just crazy, man. But now that you're out, I've been really waiting for the fitness videos. I want to see like a workout Wednesday with Meech or something.
That'd be funny. It's funny since I'm probably going through a rebrand that you say that because so many people wanted me to. It's funny though, in the grand scheme of things, would I have made YouTube videos around health and wellness and gotten more traction?
Yeah, would you have gone down that route? If you want to talk about domino effects, I mean,
I
could. If you were able to do this right when you'd started YouTube, who knows? You could have had videos about workouts or races. I don't know, race mentality.
And I think I do a decent job of staying consistent with content, making quality content, and I was good. I don't like being brash. I don't like bragging. I was pretty, for a divisional athlete, I was at least average.
You were above average.
I would say I was at least average. And in our conference, I would podium. I podiumed a couple times.
Yeah.
I had the capabilities of being, top 100 in an event in the country,
Yeah.
I was ranked 88th my senior year in the 800 in the country, which is like pretty good. Not awful.
You mean the region or the country?
No, indoors. I was ranked 88th in the country my senior year before, remember like COVID happened and everything, but going into the outdoor season, I was like, I'm breaking 150. Then I got the hernia.
Dude, you were fit.
Yeah, and then I had the hernia, which sucked. But like, because I ran that time with a hernia, which was like the whole joke. I'm like, man, I could run really fast right now if I don't have this hernia and I run. Yeah, so I was ranked like top 100 in the country. I definitely could see myself going down that route.
Mm-hmm. No, it definitely could have happened. And yet, I mean, all things happen for a reason. I think it's good that I think one thing that it's very minor, but something that I think that is maybe bad about NIL is people are going to lean more and more into their student athlete persona.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that a big issue is that a lot of student athletes don't have a like plethora of personality characteristics or like identity facets.
Like I'm an athlete. Yeah.
It's like you're an athlete, but you're also like YouTube guy now. You're Notion guy. Like you're into productivity. And it's like, it's a very, very minor cultural thing. But I think we're going to see a lot of people lean more and more into just being an athlete and not branch themselves out a little further because it's not going to make them money.
That's very fair. I think that's a good argument. However, I want to say something funny. I would say, I mean, outside of like, us running wise, and even some of us running wise, like, let's not act like that wasn't already a thing. Like, some people are just the guy who only wears Loyola gear. But like, I agree with you. They'll lean more into it.
It's already been an issue in my mind. And it's just this is augmenting it. Yeah.
Fair enough. I would say, as a person who, and you basically make self-help videos now too. I think we've seen that a lot of people are not as multifaceted characteristic wise in college athletics as maybe could be the case.
Exactly. So that's my minor concern for the culture.
The culture. I'm not concerned about Loyola.
I kind of am. This is another thing I want to bring up. Oh God,
okay.
I'm worried for non-Power 5 schools.
Oh, okay.
Because why would you not? Like, if you're, let's say Cole Hawker. Make it a track thing. Like, the guy could go anywhere in the country out of high school for running. And he went to Oregon, which is like infamously just one of the best colleges for long distance running.
Exactly.
That guy could have gone anywhere. But why now with NIL? Why would a Cole Hawker just graduating high school now ever go to any other school other than a Power 5 school? Or even any school that doesn't have a big reputation for running? If you don't get eyes on you, why would you even go?
Fair point. You could outmake the scholarship money just by being a walk-on in one of those teams.
Exactly.
If you do just a good job of,
If you are working out, like if you're able to make a YouTube video where it says I worked out with, I don't know,
Cooper Tier,
Centrowitz.
Oh God,
Cooper Tier.
Whoever,
It's like it's unreal. It's like it's crazy.
Thoughts?
I don't know. I don't think that mid-major schools are going to see the same stars come in as often, just because if the lights aren't shining on that school, why would people go to those schools?
Great question. Do you think then Adam Fogg wouldn't have went to
Drake? I don't know. I really don't know enough about the
you know what? I would say, hedging against this one part, at least the foreign athletes would still go to schools that will give them full rides.
I think there's going to be more foreign athletes that come to the United States now, because in places like, I don't know, we had a teammate in Greece who had a sponsorship deal, and then he came here, and one of the things he didn't like was that he wasn't able to hold that sponsorship with the NCAA. So I think that, I don't know, this is kind of I think America's just behind, and this is the way it is in a lot of European countries, and I think that they're going to like that more. This is seen as a plus for them for sure.
True. I definitely think those ones will probably still go to mid-majors, just because I don't know if many people are familiar with this, but there's an expectation for European athletes who come in that have a similar skill set to an American to be paid more scholarship money due to the fact that they don't have expenses nearly as high in foreign countries. So there's just the way of recruiting, as is in college athletics. Don't want to get into that subject. Sometimes touchy, but I see where you're coming from there. What's interesting? The whole Hobbs Kessler thing is intriguing to me. He could still go pro, but go to NAU still. Have you thought about this?
You could do both.
So this is an interesting subject that was brought up on the Flow Track podcast, which I thought was insane because not a lot of the times do I think some of the points they make on there are good. Sorry for the jab, but y'all talk track all the time, yet somehow I feel like I know more. There is a scenario where Hobbs Kessler is an Adidas-sponsored athlete moving forward. He was offered a big Adidas contract. He's going to a school that runs in Adidas shoes. That
doesn't conflict with the school.
It does. The question is, does it? Like, some people immediately go no, but if this is interesting. So some track sponsorships, right, have performance incentives, which would then make it a profession thing. So then they, not allowed to be sponsored.
Yeah.
And be in college. If you want to see this episode or any other episode of the Rise Productive podcast, make sure to go and check the show out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else that you can find podcasts today.